Her name was Arizona Donnie Clark, but the world would know her as Ma Barker. She was born in Missouri in 1873, a time of change, a time of hardship. Ma Barker had 4 sons, Herman, Lloyd, Arthur, and Fred. They became outlaws, infamous criminals. The Depression gripped America. Poverty was rampant. Banks failed. People lost everything. Hope was scarce. This era of despair fueled their desperate acts. A dark legend was born. Ma Barker's image became iconic. Was she the criminal mastermind, the brains of the operation, or just a mother? A mother who followed her sons into darkness. Some said she planned the robberies, the kidnappings. Others claimed she merely tagged along, a drifter with her boys. The truth remains debated, shrouded in mystery. But her name became synonymous with terror, a symbol of a lawless time in American history. The legend of Ma Barker began. Her sons were her world. Herman was troubled, quick to anger. Lloyd was a follower, easily led. Arthur, known as Doc, was considered dangerous, clever. Fred was perhaps Ma's favorite, loyal to a fault. Together they carved a path of violence across the Midwest. They were a family of outlaws bound by blood and by crime. Their story is a chilling one. The Barker gang was not alone. This was the age of John Dillinger, Bonnie and Clyde, Pretty Boy Floyd. Public enemies roamed the land. The newspapers sensationalized their exploits, making them folk heroes to some, monsters to others. Ma Barker and her sons fit this mold. Their crimes shocked the nation. Their story became a grim part of American folklore. The Barker boys found crime early. It started small. Petty theft, stealing cars. But small crimes grew. They became bolder, more violent. Herman Barker was the first to truly break bad. He robbed stores. He shot a night watchman. The seeds of outlawry were sown deep. Ma Barker watched her sons. What did she think? Did she encourage their descent, or simply fail to stop them? Some say she taught them to be ruthless. Herman's criminal career was short and brutal. He was involved in robberies, shootouts with the law. In 1927, Herman faced capture in Wichita, Kansas. He was wounded in a gunfight with police. Rather than surrender, he took his own life. This event hardened the remaining family. It fueled their anger, their distrust of authority. Ma Barker grieved, but the family's path was set. Crime was their life now. Lloyd Barker was in and out of prison. He served time for mail robbery, for other offenses. Doc Barker also embraced the criminal life. He was smart. He was dangerous. He quickly became a key figure in their operations. Fred Barker, the youngest, followed his brothers. He idolized them. He wanted their approval. Ma was always there, in the background or in the lead. The lines were blurred. Her influence undeniable. The family moved often, from Missouri to Oklahoma to Tulsa. They could not settle. The law was always close. Their homes became temporary hideouts, places to plan, places to count their stolen money. They lived on the run, always looking over their shoulders. This nomadic existence shaped them. It made them suspicious. It made them reliant on each other. A fortress of family against the world. The Barker brothers needed more firepower, more cunning. They found it in Alvin Karpis. Karpis was a hardened criminal, intelligent, ruthless. He had a reputation. He was known as Creepy Karpis. He met Fred Barker in prison, a fateful encounter. Together, they formed the Barker-Karpis gang. This alliance changed everything. It made them stronger, more organized, more dangerous than ever before. The Barker-Karpis gang unleashed a reign of terror. They robbed banks across the Midwest, systematically. They were meticulous in their planning, brutal in their execution. They used machine guns, fast cars. They showed no mercy to anyone who stood in their way. The gang became a well-oiled criminal machine. Karpis was often the strategic mind. The Barker boys provided the muscle, the sheer audacity. Ma Barker was ever present, her role still debated. Their notoriety grew with each daring crime. Newspapers called them the Midwest Marauders. They were a symbol of the lawlessness plaguing the nation. J. Edgar Hoover, head of the fledgling FBI, took notice. He declared them public enemies. The full force of the federal government began to focus on them. But the gang was elusive. They moved constantly. They had a network of contacts, safe houses. They seemed untouchable for a time. The gang was not just about bank robberies. They branched out into kidnapping. This was a more lucrative and more heinous crime. It struck fear into the hearts of wealthy families. The Barker-Karpis gang became specialists in abduction. They demanded huge ransoms, and they often got them. This escalation marked a new level of depravity. They were no longer just thieves. They were predators. The legend of Ma Barker and her bloody brood grew darker. One crime stood out, the kidnapping of Edward Bremer. Bremer was a wealthy banker from St. Paul, Minnesota. It happened in January 1934, a cold winter day. The gang planned it carefully for months. They knew Bremer's routines, his habits. Doc Barker and Alvin Karpis led the abduction. They snatched Bremer off the street in broad daylight. It was bold. It was terrifying. The nation was shocked by their audacity. The gang held Bremer captive for weeks. They moved him between hideouts, kept him blindfolded. They demanded a ransom of $200,000, an enormous sum in those days, equivalent to millions today. The Bremer family was desperate. They agreed to pay. The ransom drop was complex, designed to avoid police. Fred Barker played a key role in collecting the money. The gang displayed their chilling efficiency. This was not just robbery. It was calculated cruelty. Once the ransom was paid, Bremer was released. He was shaken, but alive. The kidnapping cemented the Barker-Karpis gang's reputation. They were seen as the most dangerous criminals in America. The public was outraged. The pressure on law enforcement intensified. J. Edgar Hoover made their capture a top priority. He vowed to bring them to justice, dead or alive. The Bremer case was a turning point, the beginning of the end for the gang. The money from the Bremer kidnapping was tainted. It brought them temporary wealth, but also immense heat. The FBI was now relentless in its pursuit. Agents worked around the clock, tracking leads, interrogating informants. The gang members began to feel the pressure. They argued amongst themselves. Trust eroded. The vast sum of money could not buy them peace. Instead, it only hastened their descent into chaos. and violence. In the end, the very crime that made them infamous would also seal their fate. The G-Men cometh. Hoover's relentless pursuit. J. Edgar Hoover was building his empire, the FBI. He needed victories. He needed to show results. Outlaws like Dillinger, Floyd, and the Barker Karpus gang were his targets. Hoover declared a war on crime. He used the media. He painted these criminals as monsters. He portrayed his agents, the G-Men, as heroes. The capture of the Barker Karpus gang became a personal crusade. For Hoover, it was about law and order and power. The FBI's resources were vast and growing. The FBI began to close the net. Slowly, methodically, they tracked the gang's movements. Their associates, informants were crucial. Fear and greed loosened tongues. Agents learned about their hideouts, their habits. The gang members were skilled at evasion, but the FBI was patient and determined. They knew that sooner or later, someone would make a mistake. The pressure was constant, unyielding. The days of easy escapes were numbered. Several gang members were captured or killed. Doc Barker was arrested in Chicago in January 1935. He would later die, trying to escape Alcatraz. Alvin Karpus, public enemy number one, remained at large for a time. But the core of the gang was crumbling. Lloyd Barker was already in federal prison. Only Fred and Ma Barker were still together, still free. They were running out of places to hide. The FBI was getting closer, every day. The hunt for Ma and Fred Barker intensified. Hoover wanted them badly, especially Ma. He had cultivated her image, the mother of crime. Her capture would be a major victory for the FBI. Agents followed leads that led them to Florida, a quiet, unassuming state, far from their usual haunts. They believed Ma and Fred were seeking refuge there, trying to blend in, to escape the relentless pursuit. But the FBI was not far behind. Their time was running out. Florida sunshine, gathering shadows. The Ocklawaha hideout. Fred and Ma Barker sought anonymity. They fled south to the warm climes of Florida. They rented a 2-story cottage in Ocklawaha, near Lake Weir, a peaceful, remote area. They used aliases Mr. and Mrs. T.C. Blackburn. They paid their rent in cash, large bills. They hoped to lay low, to escape the dragnet. For a short time, they found a fragile peace, but the shadows of their past were inescapable. The FBI was on their trail. The FBI received a crucial tip. Some say it was an anonymous letter. Others believe it was information pieced together from informants from Doc's arrest. The details are murky, but the result was clear. Agents focused on the Ocklawaha area. They began a discreet surveillance operation. They identified the cottage, the Blackburn residence. They confirmed that Fred Barker was there, and with him, his mother, Ma Barker. The trap was slowly being set. The FBI agents gathered quietly, cautiously. They did not want to spook their targets. They planned their raid with precision. They knew the Barkers were heavily armed and dangerous. They expected resistance, likely a violent confrontation. The agents surrounded the property in the pre-dawn hours. It was January 16th, 1935, a date that would live in infamy. The air was still. The lake was calm, but a storm of violence was about to erupt. Inside the cottage, Ma and Fred were likely unaware. Perhaps they felt a sense of security in their remote hideaway. Or perhaps they always lived on edge, expecting the inevitable. The FBI agents waited for the right moment. They had orders to apprehend, but they were prepared for the worst. The sun began to rise over Lake Weir, casting long shadows, illuminating the scene of the final act. The final chapter for Ma and Fred Barker was about to be written. Inferno at Lake Weir, the longest gunfight. On the morning of January 16, 1935, a heavy tension hung in the air. FBI agents quietly surrounded a small white cottage on the edge of Lake Weir. Inside, Ma Barker and her son Fred waited, armed, desperate, and determined not to be taken alive. Agent Earl Connolly called out, "Fred, Ma Barker, this is the G-men. Come out with your hands up." Silence followed. Then, a defiant shout echoed from within the house. Or was it just the wind? The agents waited, nerves stretched tight as the silence deepened. Suddenly, gunfire erupted from inside the cottage. The agents fired back, and a furious gun battle exploded. What followed was the longest siege in FBI history at the time. Nearly 5 relentless hours. Machine guns rattled. Rifles cracked. Pistols barked. The FBI unleashed thousands of rounds into the tiny house, determined to end the standoff. Tear gas canisters crashed through the windows, filling the rooms with choking smoke. The cottage was transformed into a war zone. Splintered wood and shattered glass everywhere. The air grew thick with smoke and the sharp scent of gunpowder. Inside, Ma and Fred fired back, sporadically but fiercely. Surrender was never an option. Gradually, the gunfire from inside slowed, then stopped. An eerie, heavy silence settled over the scene. The agents crept forward, every sense on high alert. Was it over, or was it a trap? Was Ma Barker planning one last ambush? They waited, time dragging on as the tension refused to break. No sound, no movement. The house stood silent and still. At last, under cover, the agents stormed the house. Inside, devastation greeted them. Furniture overturned, walls riddled with bullet holes. The air was thick with the smell of death and gunpowder. It was a bloody end to a violent chapter in American crime. Upstairs, they found Fred Barker, first, lifeless, in a bedroom. He was riddled with bullets, a machine gun still close to his hand. In the same room, Ma Barker lay dead as well. A single bullet had ended her life. Some claimed she died clutching a machine gun, while others insisted she never fired a shot. Either way, the legend of Ma Barker, the gun-toting matriarch, was sealed forever. The reign of the Barker Karpus gang ended that day, but the echoes of that bloody morning would haunt the bullet-scarred walls for decades to come. The house scarred by history, from bloodshed to museum. The house on Lake Weir stood silent, but scarred. Hundreds of bullet holes peppered its wooden frame, each hole a testament to the fierce battle. The violence of that January morning was etched into its walls. The FBI documented the scene, collected evidence. The bodies of Ma and Fred Barker were removed, but the house itself remained, a gruesome monument. It quickly became a morbid tourist attraction. People came to stare, to imagine the final moments. For years, the house remained at its Ocklawaha location, a dark landmark, a reminder of the bloody past. Souvenir hunters chipped away at it, seeking grim mementos. The elements took their toll. The house began to decay, but its story was too compelling to let it fade away. There were efforts to preserve it, to save this piece of history. Eventually, the decision was made to move the entire structure, a delicate operation to keep its bullet-riddled integrity intact. The house was carefully transported to a new location. The house found a new home in Marion County, Florida, not far from its original site. It was painstakingly restored, or rather, preserved. But the bullet holes were kept. The damage was part of its story. It was transformed into a museum, the Ma Barker House, a place where visitors could step back in time, into one of the most infamous crime scenes in American history. The artifacts inside tell a chilling tale. Personal belongings, period furniture, and the bullet holes. Always the bullet holes. Walking through the preserved house is an unsettling experience. The air feels heavy, the silence profound. You can almost hear the echoes of gunfire, the shouts, the fear. Each room holds a piece of the dark puzzle. The upstairs bedroom where Ma and Fred made their final stand is particularly chilling. The walls seem to be alive. The museum serves as a haunting nudge of a violent era, of the consequences of a life of crime. But some say it holds more than just history. It holds restless spirits. Whispers in the walls, the lingering spirits of the Barker gang. The Ma Barker House is more than just a museum. Many believe it is haunted. Staff and visitors have reported strange occurrences, phenomena that defy logical explanation. Cold spots appear suddenly in otherwise warm rooms. Many feel as if they are being watched by an unseen presence. Shadowy figures flicker at the edge of vision. Are these the spirits of Ma and Fred Barker, trapped in the place of their violent deaths? The sounds, perhaps, are the most unsettling. Disembodied voices whisper when no one is there. Footsteps echo on the wooden floors, both upstairs and downstairs. Doors creak open and slam shut on their own. Objects move seemingly by an unseen hand. Paranormal investigators flock to the house, equipped with cameras, audio recorders, and ghost hunting gadgets. Many claim to have captured evidence, eerie EVPs and strange anomalies. The house seems to retain the terror and anguish of that final day. The upstairs bedroom is considered the epicenter, the most active area for paranormal activity. This is where Ma and Fred died, amidst a hail of bullets. Visitors often report feeling overwhelming sadness or anger. Some claim to have heard Ma Barker's sharp, commanding voice. Others hear the desperate cries of Fred. The bullet holes in this room are a constant expression of the violence that occurred, as if the trauma is imprinted on the very fabric of the building. The legacy of Ma Barker is complex, mythologized by J. Edgar Hoover and sensationalized by the press. Was she the ruthless matriarch or a tragic figure? The house in Florida stands as a monument to her infamous life and death. Whether haunted by actual spirits or simply the weight of its history, it remains a chilling place. A portal to a dark past. The whispers in the walls continue, telling a story of crime, desperation, and a bloody end. The haunting legacy of Ma Barker endures a cold spot in American history. Thank you for watching Chronicles of Mysterious Tales. If you enjoyed this journey into the dark and haunting legacy of the Barker gang, please like, subscribe, and share my channel. Your support helps me continue exploring the most mysterious corners of history. I truly appreciate you joining me. Until next time, stay mysterious.